Street Week with Rukeyser.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back. I'm Uncle Pete. This is Uncle Pete's Wall Street. The clip you just saw was the intro to Wall Street Week with Rukeyser, which was a program that was on PBS beginning in 1970. And it was the original program that talked about Wall Street, money, and the economy. Long before there was CNBC or Bloomberg Radio or Fox Business or any of a million different YouTube channels on Wall Street, there was only one place where you could get information on the stock market other than, the Wall Street Journal. I'm talking about a television program. And that was Wall Street Week with Rukeyser. And every Friday night at 8:30, I would be in front of my TV waiting for Lou to come on. He was affectionately known as Uncle Lou, which is, if you probably guessed, is where I came up with the name Uncle Pete as a tribute to him. Although I could never do what Uncle Lou did. He was the best at what he did. Unfortunately, he died young in 2006 from multiple myeloma. He was in his early 70s. And there was nobody like him on television. Nobody like him. And I'm linking a video in the description if you're interested. It's almost an hour-long video, but at least it'll give you an idea of, if you're a young person and you never heard of Rukeyser, it'll give you an idea of what you missed. He was an amazing man, and he had a legion of fans. And he also, when the stock market went haywire, he was known as a calming force on the market and on people to take things in stride and not get too stressed out. So the topic of today's video is, how did Uncle Pete get started in investing in the stock market? And there were two influential men. One was Rukeyser, and I had met him several times. I think beginning in the late 90s or early 2000s, he would hold investing seminars in Las Vegas, like a week-long investing seminar, and I would go to them, and I got to meet him several times in the years that I went. He was a really genuinely nice man, very approachable, as was all the panelists on his show, because at his investing conferences in Las Vegas, I got to meet some of his most famous panelists on his show, one of them being Frank Cappiello, who he passed away too. He was an incredible man, a Marine who became one hell of a force in investing. So there were these two men, Rukeyser, where I started watching his program, I think in 1988, 89, and I got hooked. I just got hooked on how he approached economics and finance and Wall Street. And I watched him religiously every Friday night at 8:30, and it was just a half-hour program. That was all you had back then. There was none of this 24/7 analysis of cable TV, CNBC, Bloomberg, all of this all day long analysis. There was him, 30 minutes on a Friday night, and that was it. And really, for people who are long-term investors, rational investors, that's all you really need is 30 minutes. And I'm trying to bring that approach to this channel and try and inform people that all this second by second analysis of the stock market and companies and economics and the economy, it's so unnecessary, and it just confuses people and gets people all riled up, and it's nuts. I mean, if you ever watch Jim Cramer on CNBC and then uh, you watch a program of Louis Rukeyser on Wall Street Week, you're going to see two very, very different men and their approach to investing and making money in the stock market. Two very, very different men. But anyway, there's the two men. There's Louis Rukeyser, and there's another man by the name of Arthur Zeichel. And I met Arthur Zeichel in 1990. My friend who I was in a band with in the late 80s, and I became his roommate in Plainsboro, New Jersey. My buddy Jeff, rest in peace, Fletch. Miss you, man. He got me a job at Merrill Lynch in Plainsboro at what they called, at the time, Merrill Lynch called it the Princeton corporate campus, but really it was in Plainsboro. It was at 800 Scudder's Mill Road in Plainsboro. It was a beautiful building. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And next door to the building, they had a hotel and they had a helipad. And the top brass of Merrill Lynch, the CEO and the CFO and others, they would fly in on a helicopter from time to time from Manhattan and land on the helipad. And, they had the hotel ready for them if they were going to stay overnight. And they would come and meet and speak with people at the Princeton corporate campus. It was a beautiful building. And when I first started working there, they had these, I can't remember if it was like a memo that came around or it was a memo on a bulletin board. But when I first started working there, they had these things called lunch and learns. And it was held in an amphitheater. The building that I worked in had this beautiful amphitheater where they gave, they needed a big, huge conference room. So they had this amphitheater. And they said the speaker was going to be a mutual fund manager named Arthur Zeichel. And sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago. I never really got to thank him for what he's done to my financial life, because him and Louis Rukeyser were instrumental in where I am today financially. But he would hold these things called lunch and learn. You got to bring your lunch into the amphitheater, and he would explain. He was a famous mutual fund manager at Merrill Lynch, and he was head of what was called Merrill Lynch Asset Management, or as we at Merrill Lynch called Milan. We always called it Milan, but it was MLAM, Merrill Lynch Asset Management, and he was the head of that, and he was a mutual fund manager. And at the lunch and learns, I was shocked that it was this big amphitheater in the building, and there were just a handful of people there, and I was one of them. And that's when I first started learning about the stock market and investing. I was barely 28 years old. I had I had been watching Rukeyser, but I hadn't put any money into anything yet. I was just a fan of Rukeyser's show in the late 80s. But then I'm working in the business, and I meet this man named Arthur Zeichel, and he explained investing and mutual funds and the stock market. And that's how I got started investing. I started investing in 1990. And you can imagine, if you look at what the Dow and the S&P 500 were in 1990, and that's where I started investing. And I just did what these men advised me to do. Open up a brokerage account, a retirement account, um, put money in it every month, and buy the market. And there were times where I was buying stocks too on my own, and I wasn't doing very well with them. But it began my real earnest um, education in investing, long term investing. I'm not talking about trading. Trading is speculating. Day trading is speculating. Swing trading is speculating. That's a totally different animal. Um, it has nothing to do with long term investing, in a retirement plan. So that's when I started really my education, and they would oftentimes recommend books, and I would read books, and I slowly started to learn how this all works, and I continue to watch Rukeyser every Friday night at 8:30, and I hope that you take an hour out of your time and click on the link in the description and watch uh, who Rukeyser was. He was a funny guy. He was witty. Um, um, he would never let his guests talk over his audience. So if they mentioned a term um, that most people didn't know, he would press them and have them explain it. He was a genuine guy, and the investing world really missed him. And so he ended up Rukeyser ended up getting sick and had to leave the show, and then he had to permanently leave it. And they had some different guests on the show while Rukeyser was out, but after he left, um, well, I'm sorry. Actually, I have to go back, because what happened was, after he was on the air for over 30 years on PBS, but then they kind of um, sabotaged him, and they wanted to change things up. And there's a video probably on YouTube of him coming on when they told him they were going to fire him. Um, he announced, or they were going to let him go. He announced on the program that they had what they were going to do to him, and they immediately fired him after the program. So then he went over and he started a new program on cable TV. Then he got sick, and they had some guests filling in for him. And then I think now today, I think Bloomberg took over the show or something. I've never watched it since. Once Louis Rukeyser passed away, for me, there wasn't going to be anyone who could fill his shoes. Not in the least. So so that's how I got to learn about investing. That's how I got started in 1990, by these two great men, Arthur Zeichel and Louis Rukeyser. And I owe I owe everything, my finances, to these men. Without these men, without Arthur Zeichel taking the time out of his busy day to go to an amphitheater at the Princeton corporate campus and talk about investing to people who wanted to learn, I'm so glad that I took time out of my day, out of my lunch hour. I didn't leave the building and go somewhere else. I sat in his class for free. I was learning for free from a man who was a mutual fund manager and very high up in the company. And he taught me about investing. And that's how I got started. And I'm so thankful that I did that, because now it's 35 years later. And, where was the S&P 35 years ago? It was, you know, extremely low. Now it's at over 6,000. I think when I started investing it, the S&P was, I don't know, 300 or less. No, I think it was about 300. The Dow, which is now around 45,000, 44,000. The Dow was, I think in 1990, it might have been around 1,000. I'm not sure. Maybe 2,000. So, and I've been investing ever since religiously, putting money in my retirement plan every month, no matter what happened in the market. And one of the reasons I stayed in the market was because of Louis Rukeyser's show. He would come on a Friday after the market would get killed. He would come on at Friday night, and he would calm everybody down. And I was one of those people tuning into his show and being calm. I didn't wake up Monday morning and start selling everything that I own because of him. And I'm so glad that I was able to find his show and be interested in his show. And I didn't come across as this young person seeing this older guy with white hair, um, and spewing all these weird puns. He was very good at that. Um, I didn't turn him off. I didn't turn him off. I stuck with him. He was this older man, with white hair, and he had me hooked on his show. And because of that, I stayed in the market all these years, and I'm still in the market all these years. And my life is completely different of what it would have been had I not sat in Arthur Zeigel's class and tuned into Louis Rukeyser every Friday night for Wall Street Week. My life would have turned out way, way different financially, and maybe in every other aspect of my life would have been very different. I owe so much to these two men. So I hope you enjoyed this video and my little story about how Uncle Pete got started investing. And I hope you'll click on the link and take an hour instead of watching some stupid Hollywood movie. Take an hour and watch who Louis Rukeyser was, and what you missed all those years when he was alive doing Wall Street Week. All right, this is Uncle Pete. You've been watching Uncle Pete's Wall Street. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. Bye.